Last week, Chad Factor had Crystalline Karazin, author of Swirling, on his radio show. And while they were talking about the subject of single mothers, they also talked about the whole swirling controversy that's been going on social media, basically mostly on YouTube. Now, I'd gotten a message about this radio show on Facebook from one of my Facebook friends Thursday night. Unfortunately, I was offline at the time. I was still, doing final edits on this novel, Spinsterella, and I didn't get the message regarding it. So I was busy, but I wish I could have been able to call in and chime in on this subject because I think I could have debated the subject a little and added something to the conversation because while they had heavyweights such as your Big B Kells and Akwesi 100s and David Carroll on there, I believe that, I could have added something substantial to the conversation. Now, when I listened to the radio show on Saturday night, it looked like this Crystal and Karazin, was pulling the same game she pulled with the Advice Show on his show. Trying to control the platform, trying to control the subject matter, and it's bringing in a lot of deflections and not really answering questions. When I listen to the radio show and I listen to her responses, I didn't get any concrete or clear answers from her. Now, I have, as a writer for over 20 years and a researcher for over 20 years, I listened to a lot of her subjects, and she really did not answer anything, with a concrete answer. Now, I've written blogs like your Why 70% of Black Women Are Single and your Ways Single Mothers Destroy Their Sons. And in those blogs, I was pretty thorough and comprehensive, in breaking down why this single mother pretty much destroys her son. And, I had planned to do a second article on it, so all the ways single mothers destroy their daughters, but never got around to it. But I listened to her, and she just kind of deflected and then, made excuses and then talked around things and never, again, put anything down concrete. Now, I have done, my own research on several of the issues she talked about. And, when she sits there and talks about Afro American women having the ability to swirl and have dating options, well, from my research, I find that there are 4 women for every 1 man. And in the black community, there are 6 to 7 women for every 1 black man. So, how does a black woman have dating options at all if this black woman if there are more women than men on the earth? And if we look at the United States, and statistically, the country is 53% women. So, if there are over 50% women, how does a black woman have, you know, dating options for men of any race? Because the statistics just don't bear this out. When you look at the numbers, basically, they tell us a story that, you cannot deflect or hide behind when we look at those numbers right there. And when we further look into, further research, such as Dr. Satoshi Kanzanawa's um, recent article about 2, 3 years ago, he stated that the African American woman is the least desirable woman on the planet. Now, this is a independent study from a university doctor and an Asian doctorate that's saying that your African American woman is the least desirable on the planet. Now, we have several sources here that I can go to, your U.S. Census and other statistics, about that 4 women for every 1 man. Then we have Dr. Kanzanawa pretty much presenting in his own study that the black woman is the least desirable on the planet. So when we look at that argument that Ms. Garrison puts in her book, Swirling, that black women have dating options, we look at the statistics and the information, and we see that, the point that she's trying to present, is just not factually possible. So on that argument right there, it's been pretty much proven that Ms. Garrison doesn't have a leg to stand on. And I can also, go in and talk about how these Afro American men, are pretty much dysfunctional because of this African American woman. And I've done that in my blog, Ways Single Mothers Destroy Their Sons. Now, that was a blog that I wrote in about 2012, and whenever people would try to respond and attack me on that blog, you know, the irony was that they would pretty much prove my points in their responses filled with ad hominem attacks and shaming tactics. They would pretty much prove every point that I made, regarding how these males are pretty much ruined by living in these single mother households. Now, everything I put in that blog was based on not just everything I've researched on boys in single mother households, but in growing up in a single mother household myself and seeing my father, maybe once a week. That's what I learned, from personal experience. So when I looked at that whole argument they were having about, how boys in single mother households, are, I pretty much can I can pretty much, break that down in a more constructive manner because I understand the subject and I also understand, why these Afro American males, are so messed up. But I also understand that, this Afro American female enabled a lot of this because, again, I grew up in the inner city of the South Bronx, from the 1980s on. And I saw this when I was in high school. I saw how many of these Afro American women went out of their way to go and pick these dysfunctional Afro American men. And they pretty much, enabled the dysfunction in these men. They would get involved with these dope dealers. They would get involved with these gang members. They would get involved with these thugs. And they had no problem taking the money from these dope dealers and, letting them buy them Reebok Freestyle sneakers, letting them buy them Air Jordan sneakers, letting them buy them Timberland boots, letting them buy them shearling coats and goose downs, riding around in the Jeep Wranglers and the Jeep Cherokees when they were out and about. They had no problem, even blowing raspberries at guys like me and ignoring guys like me. And these females would sit there and enable this dysfunction in this Negro male. And while they were going to college with guys like me, they were still, enabling this guy, spending his money, enjoying his money. And when this guy got locked up, and they got their corporate job, and they were, while he was doing an 8 to 10 year bid or 8 to 15 year bid, they were getting promoted on their jobs. They were moving their lives forward. These are the ones who didn't have kids. Some of them did have kids, some of them didn't. And as they were moving their lives forward, this guy comes out of jail, and some of them who did have kids with this dysfunctional man, they had their issues with him, but they were at this point, they look at this man who is, stuck in a state of arrested development and is pretty much, has not grown in any way, shape, or form. He's still, in ways like a handicapped child. And he's stuck at a mental age of about 14 or 15 years old. And here they've gotten job promotions. Their careers are, going somewhere. They're pretty much, on the way to being managers and executives. And they're looking at this guy and they're realizing they can't take this guy with them because he's still stuck in the ghetto. He's still talking about, moving weight and selling dope. And this woman is now looking for a guy who she can take to go meet her boss, to go meet her coworkers, and she can't bring this guy along with them, even though he's the father of her children. She can't bring this guy along because he's still acting like he's still in high school, running around in his sagging pants, running around buying Air Jordan sneakers at 30 years old, wearing sagging pants, wearing, football jerseys and basketball jerseys, and looking like an overgrown child. And she's thinking, I can't take this guy out to dinner in a nice restaurant because this guy doesn't even know how to buy a pair of slacks or even know how to wear a dress shirt like I do. He doesn't even know how to even tie a tie. And when it comes down to conversation, he can't talk to my boss because what he's going to do is he's going to start spouting a string of profanities and he's going to start, asking for if they have 800 Old English 800 or Colt 45 on the wine list. This is what they have. This is what your Afro American woman realizes that, she's stuck with this dysfunctional, he's more of a child than the children she has. The children she has have a higher level of maturity than this male that she has gotten herself involved with. And now she realizes that she is basically stuck with a child, handicapped child. And now you have these women now talk who are they realize that now that they're stuck with this handicapped child, and they realize that, the 1990s are over, and all of the so-called good men, pretty much have gotten married and they have moved on. So many of these Afro-American women are now coming up with this new ploy talking about swirling. Now, some of them who are talking about this swirling really want to make these other, good brothers jealous, so they'll continue to argue and go back and forth with them. And others, realize that they really don't have that many dating options, but they want to try to see what type of simps they can find to get to trick on them. They realize that they really don't have any dating options. I mean, if you look at the big picture regarding this Afro American woman who talks about how she wants to swirl, she doesn't have any dating options. Again, the statistics pretty much bear this out. If we look at the statistics for the U.S. Census regarding interracial dating, black woman is at the bottom. And that correlates with Dr. Satoshi Kanzanawa's, you know, article talking about how the black woman is the least desirable woman on the planet. So you have Dr. Kanzanawa, and then you have the statistics on the census saying that the exact same thing, and that the number one relationship interracially is white men and Asian women, and the second one is Asian women and white. I mean, I mean, it's white men and Asian women, and Asian women and white men. So those are the two most popular interracial relationships. And in the world of four women to one man, the Asians are not who would be the most, impacted by this. They're the ones that are least sweating this. But your Afro Americans, they're getting upset about this because they, are emotional and they don't really look at things, from a logical perspective, or a reasonable perspective. And because they don't really think about the information presented to them, they just get emotional. And this leads to them being taken advantage of by book hustlers like your Crystalline Karazin, who try to be puppet masters and manipulate people and situations for her benefit. This is how she makes her money. This is how she exploits people. You have to understand, your Afro American book hustler. Now, I've been in the publishing industry for, a good number of years. Started my own SJS Direct imprint in 2009, and I understand how book hustlers work. Your book hustler, again, plays to your emotions. It tells you what you want to hear. They offer you a gimmick. Oh, here, and the gimmick here is, for many of these single, desperate African American women, is that, oh, since you can't find a good black man, you should explore your dating options with other races, and that this book will provide you some solutions. This is the same gimmick that Steve Harvey ran on these same dysfunctional African American women with his dysfunctional book, Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man. And all the years later, after people have bought this book, the statistics still state that this African American woman is still 70% single. And we look at the statistics, regarding this Afro American woman, and it pretty much shows that, again, the reason why she is still single is because the numbers just don't bear it out. You have four women for every one man. And in many cases, your African American woman often picks bad men to get involved with when she's young. And then as she gets older, and many of the decent brothers who she paid no attention to decide to marry and move on, and she's getting older and she's got kids, she's pretty much made all these liabilities that make her less attractive to men of marrying age, because men of marrying age don't want to deal with another man's children. Men of marrying age do not want to deal with a woman with mental health problems. Men of marrying age don't want to deal with high amounts of debt. Men of other, and most importantly, men who are of marrying age don't want to deal with this dysfunctional, you know, baby daddy that this woman, or baby daddies that this woman has involved herself with. They don't want to deal with this guy, and all of this baggage that this woman carries makes her a liability to any decent man of character who's looking to build a quality relationship with a woman that leads to marriage. So he's looking at this woman and saying, if there's four women for every one man, and these women, for the majority, have all of this baggage, then why should I get involved with them when there are, you know, 3 or 4 quality women out there? Then that's just black women out there, and in addition to that, there are women of other races out there that this man can get involved with. So he has actually, as he gets older, more dating options than your Afro American female has, and that's pretty much statistically been the way it's been since I say about 1986, because that's when I first read the statistic that said that there are 4 women for every 1 man, and that number, in the African American community, again, is 6 to 7 when it comes down to men. So your black woman pretty much prevents herself from getting involved with decent men of character because she does things that impede her own growth. And I look at this whole swirling trend. It's another road into a ditch because, again, your Afro American female cannot swirl really. All she's doing is going from the pool of dysfunctional Negro males because of the way she's been raised in these single mother households right over to the pool of white males. So she winds up usually dealing with the same type of dysfunctional male, um, but in another color. And this is what has been going on for the last, last 20, 25 years. And what this Crystalline Carrison is doing, again, it's sending this Negro woman into a ditch. So she's going from dealing with the pool of black losers right over to the pool of white losers. And this is what really is the dysfunctional paradigm. And they didn't really, touch on that much on the Chad Factor show. And I've been studying this for some time. And that's why I was able to write the book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. And all these points are points that I present in the book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. And that book is one that I really think people need to read because it pretty much presents a more balanced picture of why this Afro American woman is single. It's not like the Steve Harvey or it's not like the swirling. It presents hard facts and hard information to black women about why they are single, truly. And in that one, I also talk about your Negro pastors. I also talk about your white liberal policies. All of these things all tie together in why this black woman is single. Now, the other component that I talk about in, why 70% of black women are single is how this black woman is outside the order of God. Now, when we look at this black woman, for the most part, she says she's a Christian. Now, 80% of them say that they're Christians. But when we look at the statistics, and the behaviors of these Afro American women, 73% of black women having babies out of wedlock, and we look at the black woman being the head of the family in many of these cases, it pretty much shows that this Afro American woman is outside the order of God. Now, God's natural order says that the woman is supposed to be the helpmeet and support of black men, but in the Afro American community, thanks to white liberal policies such as the wealth and establishment of the welfare state, we have the black woman as the head of the family, the leader of the family, and her trying to dictate terms to the man. Now, if you're a Christian like I am and you understand that the man is supposed to be the head of the family, then the woman is supposed to follow the man's lead. But if we go to the Afro American community, the woman is often telling many of these dysfunctional males what to do and how to live, and this man is usually put into the role of a child. He's right under all the children and even the pet dog in some cases. And if we look at your natural order in the Afro American community, we don't see God as the complete head of that order. Instead, we see a pseudo Christian religion with a white Jesus, and really the true head of the Afro American Negro community is your white liberal politician, and he's controlling everything. He is the true God of many of these Afro American women. They won't admit it, but this is the natural order in your African American community because you have your white liberals, their white liberal policies such as their social programs and their corporate jobs, and then we have your black woman, we have the children, and then underneath the dog, in many cases, we have your Afro American man. And because your man is at the bottom, the order is completely disrupted. And we have men chasing women instead of women, showing what they bring to the table. Because if the females showed what they brought to the table to men of character and conscientiousness, you know what they would tell many of these women who have these illegitimate children and these mental health problems and these, high credit card debts? They would tell them that, look, you bring nothing to my table to show me that you are a suitable helpmeet in helping me build my household and establish, a family. You show me that you have no management skills with finances. You show me you cannot rear and discipline children. You show me you cannot manage a household. So why should this man make you their wife? And this is something that many, goes over the heads of many of your Afro American men and over the heads of many of your Afro American women. And because it goes over their heads, they don't see how, going outside of God's natural order has led to the complete, decline of your Afro American community and your African American family. When I look at God's natural order, it's simple. It's God who is the head of everything, head of the universe, Jesus who is his son and has authority over the earth, man who has been, put over as God's steward, woman who's a support, and then there's the children. It's a natural order, and everybody else who follows that order usually has function. When we look at your Afro American community, it's just so out of order, and that's why everything is out of order. And when you look at your Afro American woman today, many of them don't really read their Bible to understand. A lot of them are like those 10 virgins. The 5 virgins who left, who did not go get their oil. What a lot of these Negro women did was they didn't go get their oil, and when they finally woke up and went out to go get their oil, they found themselves locked out of the wedding. So when I look at these Afro American women, this is the state that they're in. They did not prepare themselves for the bridegroom. They did not prepare themselves for marriage. They did not prepare themselves for relationships. And now that they've gotten their resources ready to buy their oil, they find themselves, locked out of relationships with decent, capable men. So they're left out in darkness with these dysfunctional Negroes, and then sadly a generation of illegitimate children who need to come to the understanding of Christ and God's natural order in order to redeem themselves and move themselves forward. Now, these women don't want to listen to these things. Whenever you present this information to them, it's like their brain just turns off. I mean, I've done this in 2 or 3 different videos and multiple blogs talking about this issue, and they could not process the information. Even members of my own family could not process the information. For them, having to listen to hard facts from a man, something just does not click in many cases. And what's sad is that many of these women just don't understand how things work in God's natural order. And if the man is supposed to be the head of the family and the man is the one who's supposed to offer you his ring in marriage, then how do you expect the good man to see your value if you are behaving in ways that pretty much show that you are unattractive to him? This is what, goes over the heads of many of these women. These women say they want to get a husband, but they don't understand the husband has to propose to you. Yes, you get to choose the man, but the husband, in order for this man to make you his wife, he has to propose to you. That's what I wanted to say. You say you can choose the man, but in order for him to make you his wife, you have to show that you are worthy of getting a proposal. And this is something that goes over the heads of many of your Afro American women. And they think that they can, choose this man, dictate his terms, make this man submit to you, and this guy is going to go out and give you a wedding ring. But if you choose a submissive man, he has no incentive to give you a wedding ring because he's getting everything he wants. And they don't even see that a lot of the culture that they were taught over the years prevents them from ever getting married because you're choosing you're choosing guys who you want to be a man in your life, not a husband. And this is something I go into why 70% of black women are single. What is a man? What is his role? This is something that many people never figured out in the 1970s in the whole living together situation that a man just sits in the house, he's getting everything he wants, but he has no incentive to marry you. This is why many of your courtships pretty much fall apart. And this is something that many of your Negro women never figure out. And I try to explain it in why 70% of black women are single. I try to print these points down, so that people can understand that when you have a man, you have somebody who's never going to be your husband. You have a man, he can't do anything for you. And That's regardless whether he's black or white. And, many of these swirlers also find themselves in the same situation because, again, they go from the chocolate pool of dysfunctional Negroes right over to the vanilla pool of dysfunctional white guys. And these Afro American women don't understand that they don't have dating options, especially in a country that's 53% women. That you just don't have any dating options. There's just too much competition out there, and that's why you have to focus on making sure that your core values are rock solid, and that you understand your role as a woman, because this is what men want you to bring to the table. They want you to bring values, they want you to bring character, and these are the core things that they want. But many of your Afro American women listening to these white feminists believe that I'm a strong, independent woman. I can do whatever I want. Um, I can do participate in all sorts of dysfunctional behavior, and there's going to be a man waiting for you, and that's all they get is a man. They don't get a husband because again, they're outside of God's natural order. God is not first in their life. God is not the head of them, and they're doing their own thing under white people, and they're pretty much screwing themselves. Now, that's all I have to say for this video. And you can pick up my book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, on Amazon.com, Smashwords, and the iTunes Store. And the book will give you a thorough and more comprehensive understanding of why these Afro American women are single. Again, that's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.